via the prompt, she can allow you in when you're ready to speak. And typically for these recruitments, I start out really easy, just trying to get some feedback for our candidates. And one of the first questions that our candidates typically ask, if they're not local to the Inland Empire, is what is it like living in Riverside? And what can I expect as far as just the community and what that's like? So would anybody, just again, this is just kind of the starter question, but can anybody there let me know, maybe 3 things that you especially like about living in Riverside? And hopefully everybody can hear me. So I see the name Renee Goldman. Renee, can you turn on your microphone just so I can know that you can hear me? Hi, Renee. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that everybody that was on the line could hear me. Well, would you mind just sharing? Are you a resident of Riverside?
I am. I also am a city employee. I
Well,
just wanted to listen in today.
Well, this is not going to be one of those political questions, but can you tell me what you like about living in the city of Riverside?
I like that it is a big town, but it has the feel of a small town in many aspects.
Okay, great. There is an Aurora Chavez. Aurora, are you available to speak?
Sure.
Great. So
I was thinking of 2 things. Always the location, because you're close to mountains and the ocean. You can get to both of them if you wanted to. So location is very good. Weather, because the weather is, has been, well, not lately, but I mean, weather is really good here, so that's good. And I don't know about health, if people are trying to stay healthy. That's another thing too. So, but anything else, we're still having to work on.
absolutely. Well, I hear we're going into the red zone soon, so that's a good sign, right?
If we can keep it, if we can keep, not go back like a year ago, how we were before, with the dirty, filthy, we don't realize how, if we went into a place, we didn't realize how filthy and dirty it was, but now that everything's cleaned up, then you go into that place and go, oh, okay, but it's really rude to say anything, but my gosh, I didn't know it was different now, so, and I'm carrying stuff, now, sanitizers and wipes and stuff like that with me now. So that's another thing that we have to do. If we can keep that up all the time, then that'd be great. And that's why in this today's city council meeting is, we're talking about the housing project, but I go, a lot of times people need to be shown how to do cleaning and keeping up things up, and so that was the concern I had with the homeless situation, about the new units that they're going to build, because if in an enclosed environment, they'd probably be able to show them, or they have to grab a neighbor maybe and show them, hey, this is how you do laundry, keeping the whites and colors separates, and this is how you do this, and this is how you do cleaning up and all that stuff, maybe something like that going on. And also to Andy Melendrez corrected us, saying that it's not homeless shelter, it's affordable housing, and I've talked to Andy about this too, because I kept on thinking it's a homeless shelter because of the wording on all the information. But I said, the word affordable needs to be put on there. And then he realized that. So even today he corrected us, saying that this affordable housing, not homeless shelter.
Right.
So wording is very important,
Absolutely.
So.
Well, I saw somebody else's hand raised. I'm going to give, is it Jason, a chance to talk a little bit?
Yeah, hi there. This is the meeting on the hiring of the city attorney, correct?
Yeah, it is, Jason. And I know you just popped in, but one of the things that I wanted to just kind of start out, a lot of times when I talk to potential candidates, one of the first things they ask if they're not from the Inland Empire is, what's it like living in Riverside, and tell me a little bit about the community. I want to ask some deeper questions in a minute, but can you just share with me, are you a Riverside resident?
Yes, I am.
What do you, can you give me a couple of things that you like about living in Riverside?
It's got a small town feel for a pretty big city of 340,000. And I think that there's something here in Riverside for everyone. When I first moved here 10 years ago, I was told by all my highfalutin friends from MIT that I was going to live in Orange County. Then I took a drive around Riverside, and as I drove around and I gave it a chance and I started looking to some of the neighborhoods, I realized there's really is a neighborhood here for just about everybody, under the sun. I thought that was really, it was a nice quality that the town had. And so, anyway, I don't have much to say about the hiring of a city attorney. I always say that there's two qualities I'm looking for, right? Having driven the last city attorney out of town, I don't want to drive the next one out of town. There's two things that I'm looking for. I want competence, obviously, but number one, before competence, I want somebody who has ethics. We've had a string here of very bad hires at the city of Riverside at the city attorney level, where we have corrupt city attorneys who eventually get shown the door. And I think it's really taken its toll on the city in the last 15 to 20 years. So that's my 2 cents. I don't want to run the next city attorney out of town as well. I don't have to. I'd rather have somebody. We pay the guy $350,000 for Cadillac benefits and a pension. We ought to be able to find somebody who's competent and works hard and is ethical.
Great. So there are 3 questions I'm going to ask everybody. The first one is just, what do you like about living in Riverside? The second question will be the 3 top priorities or challenges that you feel are facing Riverside today. And the third question I'll ask in just a little bit here, what are the key skills, attributes, and experience that you feel are necessary for the city attorney to be successful? So if I could ask anybody else if they'd like to chime in on 3 things you especially like about living in Riverside. Does anybody else have any comments about that? You can raise your hand if you see the icon there. Or
I'll say I didn't get 3 chances on 3 things, but another thing I think is great about this area is I actually like the fact that it's centrally located, and you can really get to a lot of different things in a very short amount of time. In Riverside, you can get to the mountains in 45 minutes. You can get to the beach in 45 minutes. You can get to the desert in Palm Springs and Joshua Tree in 45 minutes, and the wineries in 45 minutes. It's really got a lot to offer here in living in this area. And it's still a fairly moderate, versus the rest of California, place to live as far as cost of living goes. So
housing, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Jason, anybody else would like to chime in on what's nice about living in Riverside that I could share with our potential out-of-area candidates, should anybody not be familiar with the Inland Empire?
This is Tom Donahue. I'm with Riverside Neighborhood Partnership. I think for a town our size, we have 3 major universities here in this location and a very strong community college district. And our Riverside City College in downtown is an excellent example of how we are working to get workforce opportunities for our students that might not be going on to college. And so getting that workforce ready, I think, is an important part of it. I think, as Jason said, I think it's that small town field. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, about 3,000 people. And when I moved here, I said I felt like I came home, because that's the way it feels. It's a very open, welcoming community, but it's very progressive in what its vision is going forward. Particularly the last few years, I think we've seen some very strong momentum into taking action on how we want to see our city look like and develop. And I think you have a community that is really looking for a city attorney to be a part of that community. One of the attributes I'd like to see is not only that they want the job, but I would really like to see that city attorney live here. Part of the community. It's very difficult when you live outside a community to get a feel and sense for the rhythm and the pace of everything. But I think it's a preferred attribute that I would like to see, that they would spend the time to live here in our community. Great,
fair enough. Anybody else would like to comment on what you like about the city of Riverside, what you like about living here? Anybody else want to share any comments about that? Pam, is anybody's hand raised? Or I'm going to move into the next question, and is what are the top 3 priorities or challenges that you feel are facing Riverside today? And obviously, a couple have been mentioned already in terms, but if you have anything else to add, Tom, what do you feel are the top 3 priorities or challenges facing Riverside today?
Well, I like to look at them as opportunities. I think we have untapped opportunities in developing Riverside with part of what I said before is the leveraging what's going on at our universities, our innovation district, bringing businesses like CARB to the area. Excuse me. I think is an opportunity to, it's tough when you have an office in the kitchen, but I think it's one of those things that we want that city attorney to be able to help and assist in that process. I think that the livability here is exceptional for that particular candidate.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else want to share what they feel are the top 3 priorities or challenges facing Riverside today?
Sure, I will. I think that there's huge financial issues, and we've got to find a city attorney who isn't willing to play ball in order to bend the rules or ignore the rules, either policies, procedures, ordinances, city charter, state law, federal law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in order to chase a few bucks, because that's what's thought of being the easy way out of our financial problems, I think. So that's why I think ethics are going to be particularly a high need. I would make it the #1 priority of any candidate because of those financial issues, and a council that's, at times, and staff that are going to want to look the other way at whether or not this is a good thing to do in the long term. Because if our city attorney has really played a major role here in eroding confidence in the local government, in our last couple of city attorneys, and we need to kind of right that ship, quite frankly. I think it's deleterious to society over a longer run when we don't believe in our own institutions. Secondly, I think we've got a problem with homelessness, right? I think we've got a big problem. If you go around the town, I'll bet you, hey, look at Jim Perry's coming in the meeting here. I mean, Jim will tell you, he's a councilman in Ward 6 that, probably, I'm going to guess 80-90% of the calls he probably gets from a constituent services perspective have to do with homeless issues. And so knowing the laws surrounding that area in particular, extremely important. Thirdly, I'd say we have a lot of issues surrounding our utility. One of the things that makes Riverside unique, and it's actually one of the things I would put down as a huge asset, answers your previous question as well, as we have our own utilities here. As far as water and electricity, we're one of the few municipalities in the state of California that's water independent. We don't need the state. We got our own water supplies. I don't think people realize what a huge advantage that is. It hasn't really been truly leveraged the way it should have been here over the last 50 years. But I think somebody who understands water, electricity law would be helpful here, because I think we've had a lot of very bad legal advice been given out in the past year, which has led us to a lot of very expensive and recent, very costly lawsuits that could really change the face of how the city operates going forward. If we've lost them at the trial courts already, and there's more on the way. So I think those 3 things would be beneficial.
Thank
Frank,
you for
Aurora has her hand up. Aurora, go ahead.
Okay, in the chat room, I did mention about having hospitals and lots of schools, but the challenges that we're facing immediately and needs to be addressed is communication, very much so. I even wrote to city mayor again to let her know that we shouldn't be spending so much time worrying about communication as to, the technical side of it should have been handled before the meeting starts. But we spent time, they said only 6 minutes after the meeting, but no, it's a lot of times because other people are trying to get into the meeting. They had the wrong number. They had, all this stuff should have been ironed out before the meeting so that we can have a smoother city council meeting. Okay, so communications is, to me, is number one. If you can't do the basic communications for people to be able to call in and give their point of views and tell the city what what's on the thoughts are in their mind, then we're lost there. And also too, they have to realize also too with Riverside that residents are very political. They might be quiet, but stir them up and they get very political. And then also too that the plus side is that we have so many good businesses here, small businesses that you can go, depending on what you would like, depending your preference, you can go get pretty much anything you want. If it isn't, then we find out, okay, well, what else can be created as to a new business? But usually people will be surprised that we have things downtown, little shops and stuff that they can go and look at. And then once this pandemic gets over with, then they'll bring back the Festival of Lights and all the holiday things that we're so used to having. Even St. Patrick's Day, tomorrow, I can't celebrate it yet, so that's what I'm saying. All those holidays I used to celebrate continuously, but once things start opening up, then that'll be a whole different story.
But just to clarify, when you were talking about the small businesses, you were thinking in terms of something you really like about Riverside, not necessarily the challenge of keeping the small businesses alive, correct?
Well, that too, but it's that as a plus as to the challenge, you also have to take into consideration that a person who might want to come in may have a preference. Like with me, I love swans, and then be able to go to a place that may be a ceramic place and sell swans. A person who's going for a job and really don't know what the location is, they will probably say, well, I didn't know you had that in your city, various shops that maybe that it would appeal to me. So that was the reason why I brought that up. So as I might think of other challenges if you want me to think of them, but I really thought of those things first. The communication, residents need to be heard more, and also they're very political, even though they're quiet. When they get stirred up, they're very political. Financially, the small businesses, to support the small businesses, but we do have a variety of small businesses, which is amazing. So anyway, if I think of anything else, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Aurora.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else like to comment on what they feel are the top 3 priorities or challenges facing Riverside today?
I might add one more, which is that I sense a trend here in the area recently, and particularly the last 4 years. Probably has something to do with our last president, but I sense a trend that the public is demanding a little bit more as far as transparency and accountability on behalf of its local government, quite frankly. And I think the next guy that comes in here, city attorney, needs to be, I think I'm going to reiterate, needs to be a good communicator, quite frankly. We traditionally, a lot of attorneys aren't, in my opinion, city attorneys in particular, are communicators. And the public's demanding more out of its public servants. They want to see what these people are actually doing and what they're up to. So somebody who can work with the public.
Great. Well, thank you, Jason. Hopefully this this community forum kind of highlights how the city council is very vested in being more open and to hearing your ideas. And really that was the purpose of having this, is just that transparency and also the desire to get your feedback. So thank you for your comments. Anybody else want to comment on what they feel are the top 3 priorities or challenges facing Riverside today?
I think one of the issues that we hope that the new city attorney will take is a regional approach to dealing with issues. We have many overlapping jurisdictions that are impacting how we can make positive change, particularly if you look at the homeless issues, from whether it's in the Santa Ana River with multiple jurisdictions, along Caltrans freeways in those areas, but also into our policing and fire, and how do we manage our open space. I think those are things that we would like to make sure that somebody has not only an advocacy for our city, but an advocacy for the region. Because as we're the county seat, 340,000 growing. If you look at the RENA housing numbers, the growth push into this area is going to be huge. And so we need somebody that not only knows what's happening for the city of Riverside, but knows what's happening regionally as far as our top issues for this area.
Thank you, Tom.
You're
Well
welcome.
said.
Aurora, you have your hand up?
Yes, I agree with Tom about the homeless situation, but also too that we've dealt with it so well. And we're still dealing with it, but we're handling it very well for the time that we've dealt with it. The other thing is about the challenge will be the affordable housing. Like if the person who comes in has, let's say his mother that he wants to bring down to over here to live, the senior housing, you know, and disabled housing and all that stuff that's affordable housing has not been a priority. We've seen things being built, but doesn't have the affordable housing part, you know, so that the if a new person was coming in and has relatives, let's say as to like senior disabled relative, and they want to have them nearby but not live in the same place, that you wouldn't be able to put them in a senior housing because the wait list on most senior housings is long. And so I'm really saddened when I see buildings are being built, but it's not senior apartments that people need. So that would be the challenge for me if I was, you know, thinking that, you know, that, hey, I want a job where I can bring my mother or my elderly father or whatever, and I can't bring him because, you know, I want him to be in a housing or a senior care place. Also, our senior care places, we need to upgrade them. We have to upgrade those senior care places. Most of the senior care places I've been to is really sad. You know, they need to be upgraded. I don't know how it can be done, but that is going to be number one thing, because there's a difference between taking care of a person 24/7 medically, but then there's some seniors that are somewhat active and need to be motivated every day, you know. So there's a difference between socialization, medical, and other things that the seniors might need. But if we don't address those senior care places, there would be not a nice one that I could bring my mother or elderly father, elderly mother to. So I think that would be a no-no, you know, for moving into Riverside. So I think that's the next thing that Riverside should be addressing, is upgrading these senior care places. They really need upgrading very badly.
Great. Well, I do know of a senior living place that they just built across the street from Ryan Bonominio Park, as a matter of fact. I think it's an over 55, right down the street. I think it just opened up. Jason's
How many
live it. Seen it.
How many units do you know?
I don't know. Actually, I just saw them building it, and I just saw people moving in just recently. I live right by Bonominio Park in Mount Rubidoux, and so sometimes when we walk a dog along that, I see the complex there. So I think it's a step in the right direction based on your
Right.
comment.
They keep building affordable housing, and it's just not for seniors. It could be for low-income families too, with children.
Great.
Because they're now, I don't know if the eviction has been lifted about, you know, that landlords can't do any more eviction. Once they lift that up, there's going to be a lot of people, you know, on the streets, because they have not been able to afford their rent. And also too, with the not affordable rent, they have not eviction. Let me get my thoughts straight here. They might not have been able to evict them, but they were putting in late charges. So even if the person had lost their job and couldn't pay the rent, well, it was saving grace, they couldn't be evicted. But then landlords were charging the late fees on all the evictions. So if it's a year worth of late fees, then they get ousted and they have all that back charges that they have to pay the landlord, you know. So there's that caveat that has to be addressed. So Okay, those are the things that I thought of.
I think Aurora brings up a great point, which is that we're now entering what seems to be, in my opinion, this post-COVID world, and there's going to be a lot of cleanup
Mhm.
because of the actions taken during the COVID period that are going to have a lot of intended and unintended consequences. So I don't know from a legal perspective how that affects how the qualifications of a candidate we'd like to see here, but that's definitely going to have an input, and there's going to be a lot of
Mhm.
in
Yeah,
time
it said,
put
it
into
said,
that.
it said that they did hold off on eviction, but they didn't think about the late charges. And a lot of people are having this huge amount so in other words, the money that they got, the $1,400, it will go to the landlord for late charges for them to even stay there. And then they still might be evicted. So they're on a double-edged sword there. So I just wanted to bring that up.
And thank you, Tom, for posting that link, by the way. And a lot of these, as far as the priorities that you're bringing up or challenges, or as somebody called them opportunities earlier, these are things in the course of my interviews with candidates, they'll actually ask if they've had experience in any of these areas, because those are things that obviously the community or our citizens are thinking about. So all of these comments are really relevant, whether it's the attributes of what's necessary for an attorney. These are things that maybe an attorney might have had experience dealing with in their past job. So these comments are all really helpful, so I appreciate them. Does anybody else want to talk about what they feel are priorities or opportunities or challenges facing Riverside at this time? Or if you came in late, any other comments? Otherwise, I'll go on to our last specific question, and then I'll kind of open up to other comments you may want to share. Anybody want to talk on this particular question as far as priorities or challenges or opportunities facing Riverside today? So with that, and if you think of something, I mean, feel free at the end of this process, I'll ask for any other comments. But I think right now, and I know Jason mentioned a couple early on in his topic, maybe he's thought of some more, but what are the key skills, attributes, and experience that you feel are necessary for the next city attorney to be successful here in Riverside? Again, the key skills, attributes, and experience that you feel are necessary for the city attorney to be successful.
I've got one more to think, and I think it's really important, is that our past city attorneys have been very, in my opinion, adversarial, and they've run offices that create conflicts. And I think they create conflicts so things end up in the courts so they can justify their own existence. And I think that's been incredibly time, energy, and resource draining, quite frankly, for the last 15 or 20 years. And we need attorneys who are willing to settle differences if they can out of courts. It's very expensive for the city. We spend so much money on our city attorney's office and in litigation, either in-house or it used to be a big problem with outside counsel. And we've got to figure out ways to head off problems at the pass, as opposed to what ends up happening around here is the city attorney's office comes up with stupid legal opinions which aren't worth their the paper they're written on, which then ends up basically pissing off all the residents who end up suing their own city when they'd rather just reach some sort of reasonable settlement and move forward. And all these things end up in Riverside Superior Court and end up costing the city, regardless of whether it wins or it loses, $500,000 or $1 million in legal fees. It's stupid, right? It could go to mediation or some sort of arbitration and get settled for 1/10 that cost. But I see, our city attorney's office, the culture is to basically flip the bird off to the residents or the people who live here and work here and play here. And it always ends up in the long run costing us a lot more money. It's a dumb strategy. We need people who are, I guess, have a more business-like attitude towards litigation, which is at the end of the day, we got a municipal, agency here to run. It's got a limited budget. We can't always end up litigating every single damn issue because somebody their ego's too big to basically say, hey, maybe we were wrong. Maybe we were wrong and we should just change things. as opposed to defending bad policies and decisions of the past. So somebody can break free of the past, quite frankly, can say, you know what, we've had a lot of terrible decisions made in the past here. We're not going to defend those decisions anymore. We're going to take the big bloodbath and say, this was wrong, this is wrong, this is, and we're moving forward. And without that, I don't think that the city can move forward. I think that it's basically caused such strained relations with so many people in the community that it's you know, it's kind of, the system is broken now because of past city attorneys' actions. Somebody needs to come in and heal that, quite frankly.
Thank you. Anybody else like to express what they feel are the necessary skills, attributes, and experience for this next city attorney to be successful?
Aurora, did you have something to add?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
It's getting dark now. I haven't turned on the light here. That we are a charter city, and they have to balance the our charter and what is state and local, the other, you know, state and federal level. What do you call it? Oh, my mind's just gone right now. Precedences. They have to. We have to. Good baby, good barking at me. Yeah, so they have to balance our charter with the legal state and federal. The second one would be, this one is very important that the city should do. Okay, we've learned. Okay. Let me get to the second one. The second one I was going to talk about was Rusty Bailey's case. It being the mayor, and then he got outvoted by the council. That hit the news. So I'm sure they would have heard about that, so that struggle there, that, we have to address their concern with that. Okay. The other one that I really feel that we need to protect Riverside is the John Russo case. Okay. Because oftentimes we think we're hiring an individual, but we're hiring a consortium. John Russo had a consortium. He had other people that he would put into the positions he could, So, and that's how they got strength, is because they had a pool of consortium there of people that they know, and also too, because they know each other, like John Russo moved to Irvine, he could also bring his people to Irvine too, and we would be out so many positions. Okay, so that's the other thing too that we have to look at as to protecting Riverside is that what are their affiliations and their loyalties to outside of Riverside? We have to find out who are they working with outside of Riverside, so that Riverside itself does not get hurt. So I think that would be a very good question to find out their affiliations. Who are they? Who have they worked for in the past? Are they still working with them? Do you have any people that you would want to bring into Riverside as to employees? What are their talents? Stuff like that. But we also have to remember, not only are we hiring the individual, we may be hiring their friends also. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else like to talk about what you feel are the necessary attributes for this person, the next city attorney, to be successful in Riverside?
I don't think they can be politically naive. I think they have to have some worldliness and some savvy. Riverside's a political town. It's got a 7-member city council with a mayor. And in a public sector, which is, I'll tell you, is probably as involved as you're going to see anywhere. Between all the different interested groups and organized groups and strong personalities and individuals, quite frankly. So
So I want to open this up. We have some time here. So does anybody else want to offer any comments regarding anything that I didn't ask about? Any comments that you'd like to share that were not covered in my questions?
One of the questions, is this a national search or a regional
Yeah.
search?
Yeah, it is a national search, but the requirements are that they have to be active in the California State Bar. And because California does not have reciprocity with other states, it really is necessary that somebody is active within the California State Bar. I just went through this with LA Metro, actually, with a recruitment I did there. And the concern would be if you hired somebody that was not active, they'd have to take the test in order to become active. If they didn't pass it, you would have an attorney, a city attorney, basically, that wasn't able to practice law in California. So, and as a matter of fact, the person that we hired at Metro was actually somebody that was working in DC that happened to have worked in California before and kept their state bar, California State Bar license active. So while we are looking outside of California, that is a requirement that we have to be careful about. I hope that helps.
I agree. The rules are very different in California. So I really think that I think what you're hearing from everybody is we want somebody that's not reactive in the position. We want somebody proactive and looking for ways to improve the office of the city attorney, but also to be a good partner with the city manager, city clerk as officers for the council, but also to maintain that independence to make sure that the decisions they make are in the best interest, not only for the council, but the council represents the city of Riverside as a whole. So that I think what you've heard is we want somebody that will speak freely, speak on behalf of what the rule of law is all about, and not work in the gray areas, but work in the spirit of the law.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
I'd be interested in hearing, quite frankly, I'm probably going to be interviewing him separately anyway, but I'd be interested in hearing what Councilman Perry has to say about, when the city gets in trouble, what are the areas it gets in trouble at? Because one of them that comes to my immediate mind to me is we've had a lot of employee lawsuits over the years. And so is that something that we need to sort of strengthen our policies, internal policies and procedures to protect us against? Because I'm sick of paying these lawsuits, quite frankly.
Well, this isn't a venue necessarily where I'm going to be putting anybody from the city or council members on the spot. That's for another venue. Really, right now, what I'm trying to do is to try to take this recruitment to another level based on your comments. It'll kind of help me in terms of questions that I might ask potential candidates. Again, those are things that will really help me if you're able to share comments about, again, the city attorney recruitment specifically.
Yeah, I want to see our liability reduced proactively, not let's basically gin up a fight with somebody from the general public and then figure out what our strategy is to justify our salaries after the fact. That's huge. So.
How many candidates do you have at this time?
Right now, so the number is not huge, but a lot of people, this is a public sector recruitment. We have a final filing date of April 2nd. And so a lot of the people I'm talking about, quite frankly, in the public sector, they wait till the last couple of days to actually put their information in. But there's a number of people that I've spoken with that are planning and applying. Just kind of how recruitments work in the public sector, unfortunately.
I wouldn't be opposed to having somebody with some private sector experience. So it doesn't have to have some, because I think that adds to the breadth of how they approach problems, gives them a little more perspective. These, what I call, like a lot of these city attorneys and city managers and city clerks, they're on their 4th, 5th, 6th job and working for municipalities, whatever. They're institutionalized, in my opinion. I call them, at some point in time, you've got to be careful you're not getting somebody else's recycled executive trash. you know, we got to get somebody who has a record of not getting into trouble other places. I mean, if you bring this guy in, and the first thing I'm going to do, and probably 30 other people are going to do in this city, is Google this guy's name and see what kind of dirt we're going to dig up on this guy. If he's coming in with a ton of baggage, good luck. You know, good luck getting the public to get on board with that guy. So just be careful, be cognizant of that, because we're going to do our due diligence on whoever these candidates are.
Frank, Aurora does have her hand up.
Aurora, do you have some comments, additional comments?
Two things. I agree with Jason. Their history is a good key to knowing how long they've stayed in the work environment. If they hop around so much, there might be a reason why. The second thing is, do you have, since we are not, I don't have the list of questions that you would ask the attorneys, and so I don't know how many questions you ask them, and if anything that would clue us into, you know, what are you looking for in a candidate yourself when you're asking these questions? I mean, this is what we think of things because of the history, what we've been through, but what are the other questions that do you ask the candidate? That I'm not saying like how, you know, if he's married and have children and all this stuff, is, you know, what motivates him to come to Riverside? What does he think he's gonna, attributes of his that he can bring into Riverside? Can he be fair and impartial? You know, can he bring in his negotiation skills? If he has any negotiation skills, that would be very fantastic to be able to clear up any misconceptions or not, you know, because some people might have a different viewpoint that is not quite so. He might be able to then give a corrected view, you know, point to, let's say, a council person that might have it wrong, you know, say, no, it's not quite that way. You know, can he have the negotiation skill to put his point across? So like I said, I don't know all the questions you ask him, probably would clue me into what other questions we can ask him.
Well, so just what I'm trying to find from well, first of all, this venue here is kind of helping me to formulate some additional questions I might ask. City Council has a perspective in terms of what we put together is the brochure, basically, that we send out to potential candidates. So a lot of it's, what I'm looking for is obviously past experience, relationships working within a city attorney's office, how they've, you know, right now, you know, based on a lot of what I'm hearing, trust is very important. And so I will be asking, you know, how have you developed trust within the community? How have you developed trust with your city council, with your basically city staff, and within your own office? You know, how do you, and morale is going to be important as well. What have you done that's unique to improve or build the morale of your team, and make it a more cohesive staff? There's a lot of attorneys within the city attorney's office in Riverside, and a lot of that it has to be a cohesive group with everybody moving in the same direction. So I am asking for past experience. I try to avoid asking questions that, you know, really there's only one answer. You know, tell me about, you know, your experience in negotiating. No one's going to say, well, I'm not a good negotiator. I don't have good litigation skills. But what I am trying to do is maybe what important, and not necessarily cases, but what important issues have you had to handle in your past job? You know, what were some challenges? What was the outcome, and what would you do differently looking back on those, on that situation? So questions like that are more behavioral style, trying to get people to talk about what they've done in the past already, you know, things that might help us. But again, this venue here, and in talking with council and talking with, you know, like you said, your city manager, trying to get an idea of what's been important. And your city council represents, you know, the citizens. So I think they have a good handle on what their constituents are looking for as well.
Is there a thing that if they do not divulge information to you at the time of employment, that there'd be grounds for their dismissal?
that's pretty much a given. You know, that obviously, this is within the state of California, we have certain laws of certain things we can ask and we can't ask. So I have to be careful about certain questions like that, but we do thorough reference checks. We do thorough background checks with everybody that's hired. And obviously, if somebody does not pass the background check or the references don't come back, you know, that's something the council will take into consideration in withdrawing an offer if that was the case.
Are you going to be negotiating compensation packages as well, or just doing the interview?
I'll be doing the interviewing and then working with city council to work out a salary that's, you know, based on, but I typically ask the candidates what their salary expectations are. So council will know that ahead of time, and they'll make the decision whether they want to still talk to a candidate based on the salary expectations, and also whether if somebody looks strong enough and intriguing enough, they may still interview the person just to get a comparison of what that person can bring to the table against the candidate that maybe has not asked for or isn't expecting as much of a salary.
Is this your first search for the city, or have you searched for city employees?
I did an HR director recruitment for the city a few years ago.
Okay, so you didn't do the last city attorney, so that's good. That's a positive in my opinion, because our soft terms, and I want the HR director. Is the HR director Renee Goldman? Is she who's the HR director these days?
Actually, I did the previous HR director. She has since gone to work for Orange County Fire Authority.
Who's the current HR director?
I don't remember what her name is right now.
That's
Brenda
me,
or something.
Jason.
Okay, I thought it was Renee. I wasn't sure, but I thought it was.
Yes.
You know, we've got to take a real hard look at, and I mean real hard look at, some of the softer terms in those contractual agreements. Okay, where we got screwed on the Gary Geist contracts, everybody knows this, is that this guy should have been fired for cause. But in his termination language, it stated that he could only be fired if he committed a criminal act. That's outrageous. And I think we might end up having to pay this guy's full severance of a year. And secondly, the severance packages are outrageous. John Russo went to Irvine, he got 3 months severance. We're giving out standard severance packages here for our executives of 12 months. We need to go through every single line. This city has lots of financial problems right now. We should be going through every single line of that contract, not just salary, okay, and all the rest of the stuff that gets the highlights. All the soft terms within those deals, and making sure that the taxpayers, okay, and the residents and the ratepayers and whoever it has say in this guy's who's paying this guy's salary, that we're getting a good deal here, because I feel like we've been getting screwed in these contracts. I think it's been one-way negotiating. I think nobody's been looking out for the best interests of the constituents, quite frankly.
One of the things that I think we need to take a look out for is not to just wait for candidates to apply, but actively recruit, which I assume that you're doing. We're a majority city now, and I think having diversity on our city council, particularly in our charter officers, is important. So I hope that's a factor in your recruitment process, that we do reach out for maybe groups and organizations that maybe are not in the pool that you initially get, but to look for those candidates that meet the qualifications, number one, but also that can reflect who we are as a community, because they bring in a different background and perspective to the governance of the city.
Absolutely, and that is it is a proactive search, and I'm not waiting for. I don't expect that we're going to look at just the best people that apply, but the best people that may be available, and that's why I'm out there contacting people from either similar sized cities or similar types of cities that, like Riverside, again, maybe people have handled similar types of cases or issues and what their strengths are. Land use is obviously very important, just in terms of development, and that they have strengths in certain areas that would be important for municipal government. So, and again, my expectation is we will be getting, not everybody's interested, obviously, but I have gotten some positive feedback that some people will be applying as we get closer to that final filing date. So,
thank you. What's your timeline?
The final filing date is April 2nd.
Aurora, you're next.
Yes, I have to mention this because of the John Russo situation. I think it was the first time that we promised putting down for a house. And when every time we promise something like that, we're setting a precedence. And that's what I'm concerned with, is that when you promise them certain things, that will be the precedent thing that another city attorney or somebody else will say, well, hey, they're giving you houses now, so a place to live. So that might be a precedent now. So we got to watch out what we promise people.
Well, sometimes it's a lesson learned as well. And based on past experience, I don't think a lot of cities are doing the same thing. So,
But that was the first time we ever had done that. That's what,
Right.
well, that sets a precedent. So that was something new that we shouldn't have promised.
I understand. So does anybody have any other comments that they'd like to share? Anybody that didn't get a chance to speak? I see somebody just raised their hand.
Right here. Back to Jason's comment about the, paying out for lawsuits within the county from employees. I totally agree with that. But I think a lot of times you gotta look a little bit deeper as far as the root cause of those lawsuits. And I mean, a lot of times it's pretty obvious if someone just pays attention a little bit earlier in some of those matters. That's all I have to say. I think that goes for HR. They got to pay a little bit more attention, and their analysts need to recognize signs a little bit earlier and kind of do the math and see things coming when people do either complain or whatnot.
Great. So
Because
I think that they should take a total review of HR policies, quite frankly.
yeah.
We could head off a lot of these problems of the past. I've been asking HR department for, I think, 9 years now to develop a process to have grievances and hearings for non-represented employees. Still don't have it. 9 years later, we have no process at the city of Riverside. Our city attorney should be addressing that immediately, right?
The union is I'm actually going through something right now, and I like to keep it within the county, but it almost like they leave you no choice, especially when the union doesn't back you up, and they don't see the obvious. It's obvious signs and warnings that I've been calling out for over a year now, but no one seems to be listening. But that's on a different subject. That's what it is. It's the root cause of the issue. It's not the employees, it's the actual before whatever happened to them. There's something that happened to the employees, obviously. That's all.
Sure. Well, I've heard that we want someone who can help anticipate the issues and then provide guidance to city council or city staff to avoid potential, costs to the city. I get that. Thank you. So we have some time. Would anybody else like to add their comments or share their views on the city attorney search?
Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off, but thank you very much for having this, and thanks to council for, on my behalf and probably on many other people's behalf, for actually providing this opportunity. I don't remember when they've done this for the city attorney. Maybe they've done it for the city manager or some of the department heads in the past, but I think this is, in my opinion, the second most important position in the entire city. Maybe the third, between the city manager and the head of RPU, the public utilities. And this is an incredibly important hire. We've had several very bad hires in this position in the past. So I wish you the best of luck, quite frankly. I hope that you hit a home run. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us, Jake. I really appreciate your comments, and they will be shared with council. So we still have a little bit of time. Would anybody like to share any other comments?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? My name is Mary.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I've been listening in, and the one thing I'm listening into the conversation, all I've heard is that there will be a male hired, and I've never heard anybody mention of it being a female one way or the other, but I just wanted to make sure that there is an opportunity for females to be hired in the position. And I also, my other question is on diversity. When I did hear that mentioned, I didn't know what are the steps that's going to know that if someone is whatever their background is, that everyone is equally eligible for the position. Is there a committee that's going to determine who gets the job, or is there, how is that going to be determined?
So city council will make the final decision on who gets hired. And yes, we are looking at all candidates regardless, and really of any background, culture, male, female, we welcome. And I am looking at talking to a few female attorneys as part of the process. So that is something that's very much highlighted. We also, in our brochure, highlighted the city's basically support of the LGBTQ mandates for and support of basically the community. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at the brochure, but there's a few links on there that kind of talk about the diversity that is within the city. And I mentioned that with going back to Aurora's question, that is something that I highlight in my conversations with potential candidates, is I want them to really know what the city is about, and that they're comfortable and really looking forward to working in the city like Riverside, that really is not only diverse, but is proud of its diversity and a welcoming community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to share comments or anything about the other questions, or maybe some of your own questions or comments that you'd like to share about the city attorney, specifically the city attorney search, or what you see as issues within the city of Riverside that this position might be able to help address and resolve, or offer guidance to city council?
I do, but I just think it'll be more appropriate, not on the live kind of thing. So I will attempt to get a hold of people through other means.
Fair enough. Anyone else on the line care to share a comment or? I noticed that there's some chats there. Pam, are those comments that you can share with the group?
There was mostly everything was already mentioned
Okay, thank you.
in the comments.
Okay. So next steps, I'm going to take all the comments that have been shared this evening and put it in a report. That report goes into the hands of all the members of City Council, as well as the staff member with the City of Riverside that I'm that basically I'm coordinating with. She'll also have a copy of that report, so that as City Council moves forward, the ones that were not able to attend this meeting, they will be able to read your comments as far as what you feel are, again, just priorities, things that you have shared this evening, and also the key attributes that you're looking for in the next city attorney. And all the comments that you shared basically will be on that report. So this is a great opportunity. If you have anything else you'd like to share with us, it'll be basically get into the hands of all the city council members. If you, I guess in closing, if there is anything that you'd like to share about this conversation that maybe comes to mind later on, I believe my email was in that announcement, but if it wasn't, I can give it to you right now. And my email address is the letter F as in Frank, and then my last name, Rojas, ROJAS as in Sam, at cpshr.us. And Pam just posted it on the screen there, so you can see it as F Rojas at cpshr.us. feel free to email me directly, and I'll add any comments that you have to share into the report. Again, if you didn't want to speak up publicly, or if you prefer to just share your comments privately, I will welcome those comments, and I'll add them to my report that I'll send to City Council along with the candidate list that I provide at the beginning of April. So it's 7:30. We did allow this meeting to go on until 8 o'clock. Does anybody? And feel free to contact me directly if you want to share any comments. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us comment on giving our points of view too. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Aurora. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you, sir. Pam, I noticed that somebody was trying to connect to their audio. Were they just not able to, or was it just showing up on the screen like that? You know?
Showing up on the screen like that because everybody had been admitted.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So there were an awful lot of people that were just on their phones.
Sure.
You know.
Jim, did you want to share any comments? I was trying not to mention anybody's name, including yours or the HR director's name on the, I just didn't want to put anybody on the spot, so.
No, that's okay. The whole cast of characters were there.
Yeah, yeah. No, I assume the people who spoke up were the people that you probably know pretty well.
Yes, yes.
I'd hope that more people would be willing to speak up, and unfortunately, but by offering my email, hopefully people are going to be willing to maybe offer more comments later on. But I apologize that somebody asked your comments. I didn't want you, again, I tried to divert them. I hope that was okay. I tried to divert them from that. That wasn't really, that this wasn't the venue.
That's perfectly fine. That's him. This is kind of what happens at community meetings that he attends. He tends to, he was okay tonight. He tends to take over the meeting from the rest of the community members to where they don't participate.
Okay.
But oh well.
Well,
how do you,
probably a lot of the,
But it seems like it went pretty well.
and I was going to say that I would assume that many of the people that were just calling in, so their phone number was showing, are probably city employees.
Yeah, probably. Probably from the city attorney's office.
Exactly. They probably were.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, again, this wasn't a turnout that it surprises me necessarily, but I'm glad at least we put it out there that and hopefully the people who spoke will share it with their with their friends, with their colleagues, that we did give them the opportunity to share their thoughts and ideas if they wanted to. So hopefully that works.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it would be a huge turnout, but at least we provided people with the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes that's what's important is,
Sure.
they were asking for transparency and an opportunity
Okay.
to have their voice heard. So there it is. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
Council.
Sure, not a problem at all. And we'll,
Okay, have
we'll
a
talk
good night.
soon.
All right. Pam, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
Welcome, Frank. Good night. Thank you.
Pam, thank you so much for all your help. I'll put my report
Absolutely.
together, and when you have a chance to add your comments.
Okay, and I'll send you the recording link